individuals. And lastly, it's a tax incentive for many people. So you should always ensure that you look up on the IRS site for 501c3 tax exemption status, protocol and details and facts, and take that statement and put it on the bottom of all of your donor pages, put it on the bottom of any printed material, and anything else that's going to be seen by the public eye where you ask for dollars and people to contribute. Primarily, individuals give at a higher and higher rate because they have a relationship with the organization. And as we talked about last week, that could be a staff member, a board member within that organization. It's about creating and sustaining mutually and meaningfully beneficial relationships. Now, I just want to take a minute here to really talk about these giving phases. Someone comes in from prospecting, then they might come to one of your events, which we call ticket purchasers. Then you might get them to come every year as a member and say, oh, you came last year, you bought 1 ticket, can you buy 5? Or move them to a formal membership. The first one I mentioned is a basic membership, but you can move them for formal membership saying, if you give us X dollars every year, we'll give you 2 tickets and a t-shirt. Or you could move them to the annual appeal. But from annual appeal, then you start moving to major gifts and estate planning. To get people to give consistently growing, they must have a sustaining, meaningful relationship with you all, with each organization. Let me be clear, not you as the individual, but you and the individual. And it has to be beneficial for both parties. You can't, as my example last week showed and illustrated, just have someone come in and now they want to create programming, although they're giving you, $50,000 a year. And now they say, well, now you'll be my source for doing this program I never wanted to do, and I didn't want to start an organization. That's called similar to, but not exactly, a donor advised fund. That means they can decide how the monies are used. Clear point, within your existing offerings. Okay, let me say that again. A donor advised fund is they can tell you where that money can be used within what you're already offering, not creating new programming, unless that's something your organization decides is within your mission and your vision where you're going. But please remember the sustaining of relationships, and that goes back to the other point, that's ensuring that someone is designated to that role, right? We're busy every day. How are we going to now have that as well? So it's important to have someone or 3 people working on that. So now we have the giving wheels, and the giving wheels, it's about developing partners, right? So there are 4 stages here. It starts in the bottom with the prospecting. And then we move to cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. And you'll notice that in each of these diagrams and concepts, we're going over similar material. And what I suggest is, again, in an Excel, if you don't have a donor-based program, is put how your organization is going to prospect and how often. So you have prospecting column. Who are you going to prospect with? How often? And what are you looking for? So if you're just looking for individuals to come into knowing the know about your organization, so that could be annually or biannually or even quarterly. Your organization has ambassadors that you identify as appropriate at this session to sit down and go through lists, go through as much information and brainstorm as much as you can to put names on the table. Once you have those names, you find out who is connected to those individuals or the best person to connect, and you begin the cultivation process, meaning you invite them to your activities more, you give them a call, you ask them if they have any feedback or did they get your newsletter, send them a survey. really easy technology survey, but make sure they are on technology. Then you begin the ask, soliciting for appeals and for donations and investment for them to join you. And the last is stewarding, which is a closer relationship and ensuring that you're really working with them in tandem to hear what they're saying, and that's where the mutual benefit comes in. And so fundraising is everything from investors to donors to customers and our supporters. So last week we talked about the word between investor and donor, and we even customer and supporter. I'll go to that second. But the investors, it's more, again, of the dynamic relationship, where donors is more of a passive. You know, we said no more tin cup, not the begging, but we're going to say join us, that we have something to offer that we want you to join us and invest in. And the important point is with the investors, the deal is that you have to have evidence-based outcomes, because that's their return on their investment. So I want to say that again. You can, and that's so important. Investors want to know what they're getting for their investment. That means you have to track what's most important. When we went back to appreciative inquiry, appreciative evaluation, what are you doing well? What do you do very well? And what are you trying to become better at? Begin to notate that, and even if it's 10 to 20 areas, right? Our children, or I'm using young people that come to our program, 100% of them enter or apply to college, or say we're working with elders. All of the elders have, expressed a happier and more connected life, or, by coming to our events monthly or annually. You have to begin to notate that. And then you gauge against that standard how you're doing and report that to your investors and or your donors. But let's use the word investors, right? You tell them 75% of X happened this last quarter, which is an increase in A, B, and C. It's important, important, important. Your customers, quite honestly, need the same information. Customers are different because you're giving them a service or a product in exchange, hopefully a mission-related service or product in exchange for compensation, money, or some financial transaction. So customers will purchase something from you, and that's where you get your earned income support, right? And then supporters, they may be your volunteers. They may just be telling other people about you. They become extremely valuable as well, right? They may not purchase anything. Maybe they don't even volunteer. You just might find that this person out there just keeps telling folks about you, and the folks they tell come and support you. Make a list about who those people are, because they are extremely valuable. They might actually become a board member or one of your advisory board members, if you have something like that. Keep your eyes open. Today, we're actually hopefully going to have time at the end for you to ask questions. So we're going to look now at identifying who those viable or prospective, possible, successful, or likely donors and investors may be. Just knowing that someone has the ability to make a gift or a major gift, doesn't mean they will, right? We all know people who can probably give money or make choices in where they give money. So or what they spend their money on, even better point, right? So how do you compete with the sneaker guy down the road? How do you say that our gift will last almost into perpetuity and keep affecting change in our society? They must be personally motivated and become engaged with your organization. You'll see this keeps coming up, right? You have to be engaged. So how do you do that? So you can do that with at your board meetings. You can look at, well, board meetings, basically doing that brainstorming again to find who those people are. Remember the list that I talked about. Event guest lists, right? So if you had an event, you plunk those people right into your database or your Excel and keep a running record, because you want people to keep coming. Always the easiest fruit to get is the lowest hanging fruit. So that means if they've just recently attended something, that's where you start, because the folks who came a long time ago, it's going to take some more effort, and people want to join people who are having a good time. So if you had a successful event, you want to make sure you get those people really, really bought in and that they'll come back. Active and dedicated donors, right? So we have people who are donating, even if it's $5, or they're donating a coat, or you have goods and you have money and you have services. So whatever they're donating, they go in one of those three lists, and you should keep generating that. Single ticket buyers, really important. If someone buys one ticket or for one event, you should really, that's a certain type of person, especially if they buy one ticket. You have an opportunity there to help them build community and make friends in your organization. This is a really successful technique. Everyone who's purchased an individual ticket, you want to put those people together at an event, and not saying you're doing a dating thing or anything, not at all. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is people are joining like minds, and they're coming into your organization as a cohort. And research has found when you bring people in more than one at a time, connecting them together, there's more success that they'll stay longer and define their own experience there as a group. Annual appeal responses. That's another, who's giving money, how often are they giving money, is another place to find folks that will give more money. Invested community leaders. Everything from an elected official to, and I'll say a local elected official, to people who are doing work in either housing organizations, senior center organizations, block associations, anyone who is doing active work in the community, you should be seeing as a potential partner and an investor in your organization. We sometimes forget about the founding members and volunteers. They believed in this mission so much that they actually were a part of founding it. So to forget about them ever, I think, is the biggest mistake any organization could ever make. Ever, ever, ever. I mean, there are things that I'm a part of, and I am not, that I actually was a part of founding, at least four different things, and I am never contacted as much and solicited as much as I should be, because it doesn't take much. I'm, again, that low-hanging fruit, and I should be pulled on. And so don't forget about founding members and volunteers. International periodicals, local and national. Find like-minded publications that are talking about what you're talking about, and see who's writing them, see who they're writing about, see who is blogging, and see if you can begin reaching out to them to participate, whether to ask them to consider a blog that you're doing and get them to know your organization, or invite them on a guest pass, or whatever makes sense for you. But don't forget about folks who are writing out there, and because that's becoming more and more and more a way to identify potential donors and investors. Again, as we said last week, our corporate partners and sharing lists. Sometimes organizations can get together and share their lists and say, I'll give you my list and you give us yours. It has to be a great deal of trust in order to do that. I understand, and you could come up with some, a memorandum of understanding to say, okay, we can only use for this. We cannot share these lists with other people. We'll only use it at this time of the year. It makes sense if you all are doing not exactly the same service or work in the community. Members and subscribers, right? So we talked about the members. The deal here is that if someone has lapsed and didn't give, they require almost as much work as your major donors. You want to understand why they've lapsed, right? And you want to stay in contact and in the know with them. And last, as I said, not just where we started with board meetings and brainstorming, the last one here is also brainstorming. However, it's not just brainstorming with your board member or your ambassadors. You can now open up an annual session where you strategically say, we are trying to bring on more friends. We're trying to do some friend raising here to ensure our future. We need you to come out to a fun evening to help us brainstorm people you know and people they know who you can sign a letter or send an email to come into the fold. And that is an ongoing process, identifying. Never get relaxed, because as people matriculate out, you always want to have people coming in. Okay, suggestions and tips for friend raising. For the board leadership, and these are things you can tell, I would say board leadership and senior staff, have a direct conversation with the staff leadership and develop a plan for potential donors that you understand and are comfortable with. Now, these are things you can share with your board members, really important. Keep your donor radar on alert all the time. And we talked about this earlier, never be surprised where you could meet a good donor or investor. They are everywhere. No contribution is too small. People who don't know an organization or have not been involved for a long time will start out with an extremely modest donation and share ideas and information promptly. Make the experience more horizontal. So some people say make it flat. I say make it more accessible and participatory, right? Because you really need your organization to all be involved and not just the hierarchical process where some people at the top come up with ideas and then make everybody else deliver. It has to be everyone working together. And so be very careful of that process when you're looking to raise friends in the organization. And for staff leadership, so that was for the board. For the staff, you want to make it official. This is really important. Schedule a weekly or bi-weekly donor meeting with the appropriate people in the staff. Again, if you're on a fundraising, fund development, investment, donor campaign, you have to have regular meetings strictly dedicated to that purpose and only that purpose. If it's a half hour, keep it on time and make sure it happens every week or every other week at the exact same time. And last week we talked about using the model of action steps, right? So you have an agenda and you have at the end of it, what's going to be done, who's going to do it, and when should they do it by. And so that is, you start with the agenda, but you also have your action steps at the end. Offer opportunities for self-identification. That's the staff should really be invited to say how they could solicit investors. Let them define it. Because sometimes everything we are thinking about, we don't know. Many of us have younger staff members and they want to do, the online crowd funding programs. And a lot of times some of the more seasoned staff don't have as much experience and don't really see the success in it. And so really have all of your staff be able to self-identify how they can bring donors in. Analyze potential donors, your board members, and leadership honestly, right? So focus time and efforts on the likeliest donors and partners. So when you get all of this information from all the slides I've been sharing with you, make sure we're honest And that's up to the person facilitating, right? You have to ask probing questions. Do we really have access to that person? But don't have them actually lose confidence, but with the probing questions. It's a delicate balance because, quite honestly, most people don't feel they know anyone. So it's this two-part process. You're inspiring them to think and brainstorm, but at the same time, you want to be realistic and probe a bit to make sure it's not just all in the clouds. You want to enlist everyone in your organization, and you want to look ahead. Think about the key programs that are 1, 2, and 3 years away or more. So you really, as a staff, you want to, and this is very helpful, when you're able to tell potential donors where you're going, they feel the vision. Like in 2 years, we're going to launch this conference, or we're going to do this tour, or we're going to have this performance and partner with these organizations. It shows a level of maturity, and it shows that you are forecasting and thinking in advance, and maybe even having your budgets together in advance, and you're fundraising in advance, which shows a high level of maturity. Give specific assignments to everyone. Looking at that action step list that you have, again, very simply, it could be done in an Excel, right? What we need to get done, by when, and who is going to do it. And in the fourth column is, how are they going to let us know they've done it, right? Is it going to be an email? Who's the email going to go to? Is it going to be at our bi-weekly or weekly meeting? Are they supposed to come with resources? So you can put all of that in your document. And don't let it be a document that falls asleep on the shelf or in a computer. Set realistic goals. And if the time isn't right, use ticklers, right? If it's not time for you to begin saying, we want you to join us and invest in this big thing, you could say something like, you know, in 3 years is our 25th anniversary or our 5th anniversary, and we are beginning to do X, Y, and Z, and we want you to think about joining us, right? Use ticklers and talk about what joining you actually means, and create a thorough system for tracking former and new donors. Again, I cannot say enough. I end with that one on this page because that is a make or break for organizations being able to work with events and donors. So we want to ensure that we incorporate that. Next, we have cultivating, avoiding the pitfalls. So I'm just going to read the top levels. Sometimes you had me at hello. You know, the way you communicate with someone, your first impression is everything. You have to find the right fit, right? Always find the right fit. Pressure versus easygoing. Know your audience. Like, everyone can't handle the pressure. Like, you saying, okay, I need an answer by tomorrow. Some people, you know, and you have to know the type, and that's where the donor-based program comes in again, putting in what type of person this is. Do they like email? Do they like multiple emails? Do they like texting? Do they like you to call them? Do they want you to ask them direct? Are they, you know, I don't want to stereotype, but some folks don't have a lot of time that are in executive positions, or some people that are stay-at-home parents, they don't have a lot of time because they're really focused on their children. So sometimes the pressure, very focused communication is very important for them. Or the easygoing person. You know your audience, know your team and strategy. Always make sure, like I said last week in last week's presentation, the person that's doing the ask must be the right person. The person probably connected or has a relationship with that individual. Don't give up. You may have to go around the block a few times. Don't let a simple no scare you away. Be flexible. You have to remain flexible, and you never know when it's the right time. So be patient, as well as don't give up. So utilize your programmatic strengths. What do you use well? Appreciative inquiry. Make it easy and simple for your board members. Please remember they're volunteers. We get very, very tough with our board members sometimes and feel like they're supposed to be helping us. True, right? It is their responsibility. But again, last week, like I showed, 35% of your time should be dedicated to board development. And be prepared, honest, and direct, and plan ahead for prompt follow-up. And definitely know when to walk away, or I would say when to walk around the block, because you might need to come back. And it might not be you, it might be someone else. Determine your final strategy in going in to seal the deal, right? What is the final strategy? Define your approach. Face-to-face, letter, or proposal. Imagine closing the deal. Anticipate. You know, one of the very important aspects is the minute someone says they're going to give you money, it sounds really crass, but you should already be thinking about the next ask. The minute the doors close for your event, to start your event, you should already be planning the next one or thinking about who's giving. So at that event, you're already cultivating for the next activity. Choose your timing carefully, and always let people know when you will call them. Like, I'll call you next week, and actually do it. And always customize everything. And again, offer multiple options for people to participate, because one shop fits all doesn't work for everyone. And again, we keep saying, don't be discouraged at all. Please don't. So in order to make all of this work, you have to show appreciation. You have to make good on your promise. You have to also let them know they are becoming a part of the team and the family. And we talked about that earlier. Different ways to show and demonstrate that people can become a part of that inner circle. And timing is everything. Again, please, in creating a revenue stream, not just getting a donation, fundraising is creating that revenue stream. That means you move from just this crisis management and crisis donation to actually ensuring that you're getting donations regularly. And the renewal. Show appreciation, make good. It's the same thing I just said. Do they feel special when they become a part of the family? Timing is everything. And give them program interests that interest them. And do not communicate only when you need money. Let me say this again. Do not communicate only when you need money. They will see right through that. And we talked about admitting when you make a mistake and returning calls rapidly. Okay, so the last part is knowing that every successful campaign or fundraising initiative has an owner. Every initiative has an owner. I highly suggest that there be two. Sometimes that person can be a campaign volunteer, a chairperson, or a board member, or even someone in the organization. The owner is the one who says they're going to get the job done. So this is very important with everything I've already shown you. It is essential that someone owns the campaign. I suggest two people, which is called co-chairs, right? Whether it's a event or it's an annual appeal, someone signs that letter. Annual appeals sometimes are typically done with the executive director and the board chair, but it could be someone else on the board and the executive director. It could be an alum or a senior staff member, okay? That's very, very important. Who is going to own the campaign and drive the process, right? They have to make the time, cultivate the individuals, be clear and fearless, don't forget to steward, and develop your style. That's what a chair does and gets the rest of the team on board doing. Okay? So, last piece, give and receive. Setting that realistic goal. The co-chair model that I am suggesting is that you guys give, we talked about this last week, even if it's $5 or $10 and your board, so your staff, so I'm going very low. For your board, this is almost a non-negotiable. For your board to get other people to give, they must feel confident in saying they've already given as well. In order to receive those gifts from personal contacts or businesses or foundations, etc., it is important to be able to say in your material, our board and staff, which I've seen before, are at 100% gifting. Can you join us? So even if you work there, giving $5, $10 or more is essential. And so we close by saying the 6 areas of how you can get to your strategic goal is supporting the mission, the vision and value creation process to establish that shared ownership. We ended with pieces of board fitness through good governance and development, getting your board to also give to a campaign or to the organization to ask people to join them, strategically thinking and identifying top priorities, and being transparent, and always coaching towards the health of your organization and communicating inspired through your values, and keep training and set up research and coaching for your organization to monitor all of your steps. And so I'm going to stop here and ask if you have any questions. You can unmute and I will be more than happy. Again, this was a lot of information. I tried to repeat some things so that it becomes natural for you. Things like appreciation, like making the process horizontal, like donor-based program or your Excel, organizing action steps, things that really should become rote for you in fundraising. Thank you very much, and please let me know what you would like to ask.
Thank you again, Choir. Are there any questions out there?
Uh-oh, sorry. I'm showing the wrong thing. Uh-oh. How do I stop? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it looks like dancing.
It looks like this?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Can I get this presentation PPT?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, James, please answer.
Because I just recording this one, but I missed the beginning of the part.
Oh, wait. Sure. We'll make sure we get all of this out to you, the beginning of it and the PowerPoints. We'll make sure you get it all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, there it is. I found the right way.
Any other questions out there?
Oh, we can't hear you, Joyce.
This is Sandra. I just want to know if it's the same way I would like to receive the PowerPoint, and I was recording it, but I came in a little late, so I would love to receive the PowerPoint.
Sure, we'll make sure you get it.
Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else?
No, just want to say thank you. Hi. Sorry I came in late, but I'm here.
Hey, Vina, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Joyce, you're muted. Looks like you wanted to say something.
Oh, no. Workshop. Thank you. I was glad I was able to get all of it. And I'm looking forward to the PowerPoint being sent.
Great.
Oh, great. Lovely.
All right. Well, if there are no further questions, thank you all for joining us today. And I'll send out connection details for next week as well as the PowerPoint from this week. Thank you so much.
Fine.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Bye.
Okay.
All right.